Welcome in to Kevin and Zach React. This is a little bit of an on-the-go version for me. This is really the one weekend where I couldn't go live, but of course here I am, and we're live. This is obviously I'm not in my usual setup. The lighting is all weird, and the camera. I did, though, whenever I go somewhere, I bring my mic just in case of emergencies, and here we are. In the case of an emergency, this is my anniversary weekend, and I just watched. This is the Denver Nuggets rainbow Dikembe Mutombo jersey. Just watched Nikola Jokic put up 56 points in a loss. The Nuggets are terrible. But we're not here to talk about the Nuggets. We're here to talk about the Orioles. Zach should be joining me at some point, maybe soon, maybe not. We'll see what goes on. So again, yes, shout out to my girlfriend for actually letting me hop on here, go live. Obviously, I'm not going to leave her hanging for too long. That would just be cruel, right? But we're going to enjoy the night after I hop off here. But I figured 2 moves for the Orioles. We have to throw something together here. So that is what we're going to talk about here. Obviously, 2 moves for the Orioles. Tyler O'Neill coming in to the Orioles first. That move reported right as the evening kicked off. And then obviously Gary Sanchez didn't even happen that long ago. Not that long ago, but this just seems to be the flurry of Orioles moves. I know that some people are ecstatic about the moves, other people not so much. I think it also signals the end of a couple of tenures in Baltimore, at least all but signals the end of those. So we will talk about those as well. But obviously, it can't just be Kevin React. That just wouldn't feel right. It wouldn't feel right. So, of course, he made it, everybody. He showed up. He rallied. I don't know if he puked, but he definitely rallied. It is Mr. Zach Bollinger. Zach, you don't have to answer that question. But
no, we're good. We're good. I actually was at the zoo looking at Christmas lights, and I look at my phone, and I'm like, of course the Orioles make moves.
It has to be, yep.
All the other nights where I'm just sitting around, minding my own business, nothing happens. I'm out and about, going about my business at the zoo, looking at some dinosaur Christmas things. Boom. Look at my phone. Tyler O'Neill, 3 years, opt out after the first year. But, I mean, we talk about pop. You get pop with Tyler O'Neill. Then I was like, okay, the Orioles, they want some right-handed pop. They're going for they want some power. They're sticking with the long ball. Sitting here about 30 minutes ago, check my phone again, watching the Oregon game. All of a sudden, I'm like, Gary Sanchez to the Orioles. Now we're talking pop. I mean, Kevin, Orioles, I like how you said it probably signals the end for a few Orioles, former Orioles. But the Orioles are spending money. They're trying to get better.
Yeah, and I think, to start, we should probably talk about Tyler O'Neill first, just because that's the first one that happened. And I think that's obviously the bigger one of the two. You bring in Tyler O'Neill as a player that obviously when we're talking about which Oriole or former Oriole or free agent Oriole this could impact, it is most definitely Anthony Santander. Now, everybody's done the comparisons. Everybody's done the side-by-sides. But obviously you get a right-handed hitter in that lineup that mashes on lefties. The Orioles were sorely missing that in their lineup last season. It just felt like whenever there was a lefty on the mound or whenever a relief pitcher came in that was a lefty, it just felt like Baltimore's offense, especially in the second half and in the playoffs, severely struggled. So you go get a guy who, especially last season, Zach, the splits between righty lefty is certainly, very much in favor of the lefties, not so much righty. But I mean, this is the type of bat that you needed in the lineup in some way, shape, or form, right? Regardless if it was O'Neill, if it was somebody else, if it was a bigger name, if it was a smaller name, they needed a profile hitter that was able to go out there in a very lefty-heavy lineup, is a right-handed hitter that could mash on lefties. And people are going to talk about the injury history, of course. He's only played in 100-plus games in 2 of his 7 seasons. That's certainly concerning, and I think that is almost where the floor is a little lower for him than a Tony.
Yeah.
But what was he, a 6-win player in 2021, or was he a 6-win player? I can't remember if it was last year or 2021. But the ceiling for him, when he's on, he's on. When he's not, he's not. I know that, that can profile for a lot of hitters in this lineup, but the profile that he brings to the table, whether you agree with the signing or not, I think everybody can agree they needed something like this regardless.
Yeah, and I'm going to kind of go against the grain of what people are saying right now. I don't necessarily think Tyler O'Neill is brought in to replace Anthony Santander. I think Tyler O'Neill was an upgrade over the Austin Slater, Austin Hayes right-handed outfielder. I think that's what he's brought in to do. See British Raven over here talking about how O'Neill has missed games. I mean, you look at his stats. He has in only 383 batting, plate appearances, 266 and 473. So he hasn't played full seasons. You can't expect a full 162 out of him. That's why I don't necessarily think that this is a deal where they're going, okay, Tony's not coming back. Tyler O'Neill step in. Boom, it's yours. I think Tyler O'Neill's going to be seeing the majority of his time versus lefties. I don't want to necessarily call him a platoon outfielder. I don't think he's a guy that they're only playing against lefties. He's not playing against righties. I think he's going to see his fair share against righties, but I think he's going to be a guy who his major role on the team is when lefties are out there, play right or left field, DH, whatever it may be. His role is going to be the lefty killer. He's going to be the guy against lefties. I don't necessarily think or am sold on at this moment that they're done in the outfield. This is the outfield that they're going with. They're not making any other moves. I just don't necessarily see that. And I don't think Tony's coming back. I don't see it happening, but I don't think this puts the nail in the coffin that Tony's gone. I wouldn't be shocked if to see another outfield move. I don't think this is Tyler O'Neill is your everyday starting left fielder, starting right fielder. He just replaces Tony. I think he's an upgrade over the Austin Hayes, Austin Slater combo.
I think that for me, the Tony signing, probably happens after Soto. I'd be pretty shocked if he signed before Soto did. Maybe there's a possibility, but I know that everybody's already kind of penciling in Soto to the Mets. He's going to get $700 million or whatever it may be. But obviously, if he does leave New York, and that appears like it's getting more likely by the day, and obviously maybe it's leaving New York to go to New York again. But regardless, obviously a lot of people are putting two and two together and saying, well, the Yankees would need a power hitter, and Tony is certainly someone that they could turn to. But I think that the percentage of Tony coming back to the Orioles now, probably 5%, 3%. I don't think it's totally dead, but I'm kind of counting it out. I think that I agree with you where I think they could definitely bring in another outfielder just to continue. Yeah. I know a lot of people are talking about it. Joe, I see it from you, and other people have said it as well in the chat. That O'Neill and Heston is the platoon, and maybe, again, O'Neill gets more of that playing time, but I don't hate that as a platoon option.
That is a beautiful platoon. People, and I know people are upset with it. They hate the idea. I don't know why platooning has become this you don't want to win if you platoon. If you have a guy who rakes against lefties and a guy who rakes against righties, and you putting them together, playing them off each other, helping one balance out the other, means that you can get more out of your lineup, you do that every single time. A Heston Kjerstad and Tyler O'Neill platoon, maybe, I know people want to see Heston Kjerstad an everyday role. If he's platooning every other day and Heston against righty is going to get more opportunities because you see more righties in baseball. But that's why I said I don't think it would necessarily be Tyler O'Neill is solely batting against lefties. You could see O'Neill in the field against, a few righties while Heston DHs, Heston in the field while O'Neill DHs. I think this is not going to be an exact platoon where it's directly righty-lefty. They only play when the one is pitching, but I do think you are going to see those two kind of play off each other in that sense.
Well, isn't that what we wanted to see last year with Eloy and, bringing him in and saying, okay, this is an option that you can play against the opposite pitcher because the Orioles needed a bat like that. And obviously it was one of the most magical times of the season when he started out, and then obviously just fell off a cliff after about a month. But that's what we wanted to see. And plus, I think with Heston, it just takes some pressure off of him too. Where I think that there are realities out there where Heston handles an everyday role and does it well. But, I feel like you kind of want to ease him in a little bit more. And that's fine. I mean, obviously he's had big moments and, it's not like you need to baby him or anything like that. But I think that taking pressure off of him does no harm, especially when you can play the matchups. And we know that this Orioles team loves playing the matchups, and they just didn't have a lot of the bats in terms of lefties to do it last season. They tried, but it didn't really work out that way. So I think that O'Neill, again, if he can stay healthy, and I think that's the biggest question mark here, I would, this is kind of like, Zach, when we talk about the Ravens, or back when, it brings me back to my early Locked On Ravens days, because when everybody was clamming about Julio Jones year after year, or like, those injury, like when they brought in Sammy Watkins, I was kind of saying with those receivers, it's like they're great talents when they're healthy, but you kind of have to almost like account for missed games here and there. Like you're going to have to assume that this guy's going to miss some games just in case, and you have to be prepared for that. And as an organization, as a team, you have to be able to have the replacement ready or have the option ready. And I think that if O'Neill has to miss time, I would be fine with Heston playing more of an everyday role or them shifting some guys around in the outfield. But to have the lefty option, we were clamoring about that during the season, during the playoffs, early in the offseason. They got their guy. I know that it's a little difficult, especially if, and I know that we're not viewing it as such, Zach, but if you are viewing it as a Tony for O'Neill kind of swap, it's difficult to kind of have one of the faces of this franchise, leaders of this franchise who's meant so much to the team, just kind of, if you feel like he's gone, discarded like that. And it's tough because he's such a talented player where obviously the upside is so high. But I think for O'Neill, the upside is up there too. It's not like he's just he's a terrible player and they're replacing. Would you consider this, if it was a Tony for O'Neill swap, would you consider it a slight downgrade, push? Where are you going?
I mean, if we want to talk about, if you look at their stats, all that, it really is just kind of what do you prefer? They're very similar. Obviously, Tony, more home runs, drove in more, but O'Neill, the higher average. I'm going to say it's a slight downgrade, medium downgrade. I think you go from a kind of high tier 2 player in Anthony Santander. When you talk about outfielders, he's not on that highest tier of the Juan Sotos, obviously the Trouts when he's healthy. He's not on that superstar level, but I think Santander's in that tier 2. I think he's upper tier 2. I would put O'Neill kind of in that lower tier 2, higher tier 3. It's not a total downgrade where you're like, okay, this is a massive hole in the lineup now, especially if your plan is to get Heston some more opportunities and he takes that step that I think the Orioles are hoping he takes. So, it definitely is a slight downgrade. I'm not going to sit here and say like, oh, no, you're just as good with Tyler O'Neill as you are, for Anthony Santander straight up. But as I said, I'm not sure they're done in the outfield.
Yeah, I would not be shocked if they added somebody else. Again, maybe not a Tony. I feel like that's a pipe dream at this point, but they could definitely bring somebody else in, and they needed that thing.
Yeah, and I agree with this. It is a downgrade, but if you look at it, he's a good replacement for Slater Hayes.
Yeah, and that's fine. Speaking of, I guess moving on to the second guy, in Gary Sanchez. We want to talk about the 1-for-1 replacement with Gary Sanchez, obviously. That would be Mr. James McCann, who, again, one of the leaders on the team, absolute dog, straight up, no questions asked. And obviously, Gary Sanchez brings you that power profile. I know a lot of people are not necessarily excited about this move, especially when you factor in how much James McCann has meant to this team over the last couple of seasons. This move, to me, Zach, I know we had talked about a couple of backup catcher options the Orioles were looking into and what that profile would look like. Obviously, for a guy like Diaz, who we talked about a couple weeks ago, it's like, well, you have a defensive catcher maybe on the horizon for a team, and we know that Adley, the Orioles definitely don't want him catching as many innings as he did last season. So what are your initial reactions to this move? Because again, he's a power guy, but obviously 220 average last year and has never really been a very high average hitter, as you can see in those stats right there.
Home run or bust.
Yep.
That is what you are getting with Gary Sanchez. It is home run or bust. He's not going to work the count. He's not going to be this, he's having great at bat after great at bat. He's moving runners over. He's using the whole field. No, as you can even see in his spray chart, he's pulling the ball. He's hitting the long ball. And if he's not, he's probably striking out. It is home run or bust with Gary Sanchez. Once again, like I talked about Tyler O'Neill, and like I said at the beginning, this was a move when I saw it, I was like, wow. The guys, they are looking for some pop. They're saying, hey, if you're only going to play 60 games, 70, 80 games, you better be able to hit.
Yeah. Like they're moving that wall in and they're saying, all right, everybody, come on down. We're getting some pop in there and we're making sure those balls are launched over that wall and not having anything robbed. So yeah, Sanchez is definitely a power guy. And I see rolling with Rock that the Savant has Sanchez as a better defensive catcher than McCann as well.
Yeah, so here I wanted to go. That is 2024. He didn't play much, so his fielding numbers were down just because of the short. But over the course of his career, as you can see, his fielding goes up to 72, 2023. He's always had a great pop time, great he's not really ever been great at blocking, but his framing's always been decent. Let's see, 2022. Oh, way to go. But yeah, as you can see, last year was kind of a outlier on his metrics. Geez, 2021 was horrible for him. But overall, he is an upgrade defensively, at least if you're going to talk about pop time, if you're talking about framing, stuff like that.
Yeah. And again, I think they needed something like that, right? They needed a player that, again, the thing with Adley is I just don't think they want to put as much wear and tear on him moving forward. I think last year was kind of like you and I were discussing it a lot, and it never really shifted from the first half of the season to the second half. I think they tried it, but they couldn't. And even with Adley struggling the way that he did, it's tough. So, I mean, again, I don't expect Adley to struggle the way that he did in the second half of the season moving forward. I think that, at least we hope. I'd be pretty catastrophic if that's the case. But I feel like this is just here's what I'll say about it. The Orioles aren't winning or losing the World Series because they signed Gary Sanchez.
Thank you.
That's what I'll say.
Thank you.
Is that what you're getting? Is that what you're getting on the social media airwaves?
It's incredible to me that like the backup catcher can send people into such spirals. Like they're complaining about us signing a guy that they're going to complain about is in the lineup no matter what. Like no matter who the backup catcher is, they're going to complain when it's not Adley. Like that's why I'm so like people are like, wrong backup catcher. Like you were going to, no matter who it was, you were going to complain when they're in the lineup. I like how you put that, Kevin. The backup catcher position is not going to win or lose the World Series.
I just feel like at the end of the day, there's a lot. There are a lot of things that the Orioles can do that will have a major impact on their World Series chances, right? Obviously, if they re-sign Corbin Burns or not, that's going to have a pretty big impact on their World Series chances. Tony leaving would have a decent impact on their World Series chances. I think for a backup catcher, to me in the playoffs, if he's playing, it's a disaster. You don't want him playing in the playoffs unless he's this power DH guy that is putting up 30 homers in a very high role.
Unless he's putting up his rookie year statistics.
Yeah.
I don't see that happening.
No. So, I mean, again, you would rather have your top guys playing in the playoffs. Like, obviously, your backups get you some of the way there. I'm not saying that, you go and you punt on your backup catcher position and just sign a guy. But again, I think that the other big thing with this is the timeline on Samuel Basallo, where this move tells me that they believe he's getting there. He's almost ready. And they don't need somebody to come in and, maybe James McCann. I know there are a lot of ways his career could go. Maybe he retires. Maybe he wants, more stability. I don't know what the situation is, but I think this is Gary Sanchez is this, or maybe he's DFA'd. Who knows? Like this could be like Samuel Basallo comes up, and the Gary Sanchez is just an early season placeholder. I know they gave him $8.5 million. And I know that, in the baseball world, that's not a huge amount of money. It's something, but it's not a huge amount of money. So I just feel like, again, in Raven Lunatic, I agree with this. They wanted a catcher on a 1-year deal. Basallo's in the plan for 2026. And if McCann wanted more years, they didn't want to commit to that because they knew Basallo was going to be their guy in some way, shape, or form. So I think that's where it is. But I think this is, Zach, I would classify tonight, hopefully, obviously, I wish I knew, but I don't, hopefully is an appetizer for what the rest of the offseason could be.
Yeah, your moves can't be Tyler O'Neill and Gary Sanchez and be like, see you guys on opening day. That's not how that can't happen. Like I said, if these are moves, like Gary Sanchez is just the backup catcher, Tyler O'Neill is just that upgrade over that right-handed outfielder position, the whole Eloy Jimenez or Austin Slater, position, if you want to consider that, then this is a big win. Tonight has been a fantastic night for Birdland. The Orioles got better. If you're expecting O'Neill to be a one-for-one replacement for Tony, that's not great. If you're relying on Gary Sanchez to be the DH, play between catching and DH, if you expect him to play 80 to 90 games, that's not great. But overall, if these are just the depth signings, the partial platoon with Kerstead, you're not making these your big moves, I think they're in a good spot. And Slahater went. My Slahating days are over. He signed with the White Sox. Good for him.
Yeah. Well, now you can actually do it, because whenever the White Sox come to town, you can just root against them and not have to feel bad about it. Yeah. I don't think you ever felt bad about it, for being honest.
No, he did well though. I appreciated when he would prove me wrong, but sometimes he'd prove me right and it would just piss me off.
Yeah, so, I feel like he got way more playing time than anybody thought he was going to, and it became a meme. It became a meme.
It was just when he was getting pinch hit with the bases loaded for Mayo and stuff like that. It was Holiday. Remember the bases loaded? Yeah. Holiday's up and they brought in Slater and he struck out. Rolling with Rock. We will have those Slater leadoff games. This is why I miss Orioles season.
Those were the punt lineup games where everyone's like, all right, the Orioles would score nothing, and Slater would go 3 for 4 with 4 RBIs.
Oh no, Captain, he did. You're right. Slater did walk. Mayo was the one who struck out the next at bat, because people said they should have let Jackson hit because Jackson was hot, and then let Slater go.
Oh, you're Mayo. So right. Yeah.
But this is what I'm saying. Because obviously with football and the NFL, with one game a week, it gets drawn out. We would have random week spans where the big headline was just Austin Slater's in the leadoff role. What the F is Hyde doing? And that was just the storyline. We would go through 7 storylines a month. For the Ravens, you kind of only get 1 or 2 a month. We're kind of on the Deontay Johnson stuff right now, the Justin Tucker stuff. That's our month right now. For the Orioles, you have 9 storylines a week. You're just the bullpen is on fire. We got Austin Slater leading off. Somehow our average 7 through 9 age was 16 years old. We got no production. It was just, and here we were just make it to the playoffs. We were we just hope they do something. We came out, we had Nolan Ryan and the boys show up in the pitching staff for the playoffs, and offense just blanks.
Looking back on last year, just in the moment, you're moving a million miles a minute, and so much is happening. But looking back on it now, what a disaster year in so many ways.
Every other day, I swear we had emergency Kevin and Zach react because someone else was going on the IL.
And I had texted you when the news came out about Clay Holmes that the Orioles were highly competitive. And I was like, man, Baltimore would have lost their minds. Especially, I know the big thing with him is now the Mets are going to use him as a starter, and apparently that's what the Orioles are going to do too. So they're looking around the pitching market. I know that Evaldi's been the hot name. I know you, Ryan, and Rocco with the hot stove. You were talking about it.
Please.
So I'm telling you, I feel like this is just the appetizer. But what do you think comes next? It has to be a pitcher, right? We talked about outfield. We talked about catcher. Those are done. It has to be some pitcher.
Yeah, go get Evaldi. Go get Evaldi. I know everyone's going to talk about they want Burns back. They want Fried. I don't see it happening. I think Burns ends up in San Francisco. We got Willie Adames today. San Francisco's loading up. They're loading up. I think San Francisco makes a big play for Burns. Fried, I just don't know. Maybe they are in for Fried, but I think they're going to be in that second tier as much as people don't want to hear it. I think a guy like Evaldi fits this team extremely well. I think they get Evaldi, and then I think they make a trade. I think the trade is how they get a top-line starter. They're not going to sign a top-line starter. They're not going to go get Fried. I don't think they're going to bring back Burns. I think they sign Evaldi, and then I think they make a trade. I don't know if the trade's for a Crochet. I think it's going to be for someone good. You know, if you get a Evaldi and you get a Crochet, now we're talking. Now this, you walk into 2025, you got Crochet, Eflin, Evaldi, Grayson, Kramer. That's that 1 through 5. Povich is there. You're going to need him. Because remember last year we kept saying, wow, the Orioles are in such a good position. They have like 8, 9 starting pitchers deep. And then we needed every single one of them. So you can't just say we have 5 and move on.
Yeah. And I think, too, if it is just a straight up Burns to anybody, Burns to Evaldi, Burns to whoever, that is a downgrade. That's a downgrade.
Yeah.
But it's if it's Evaldi and someone else. Because, again, Corbin Burns was on nobody's radar when that moved. The clearest Ryan Ripken show memory I have and probably will ever have was when we finished up our show and they had traded for Corbin maybe 2 minutes after we hit the end. Zach was pacing around, sending off 8 tweets a minute.
I never felt that kind of rush from the Orioles in my life.
Ryan was freaking out, trying to figure out who was in the deal. He didn't know who was in the deal. We were trying to figure it out. That was the origin of almost like Kevin and Zach react, like live reaction shows, because we went live for that. And that's still, I think, to this day, one of the better streams we ever had.
Yeah, the week that hit like 600 people live. It was people, because no one had ever felt this way about the Orioles making a move in decades.
Yeah.
So yeah, hopefully we're in store for another big move like that.
But that's the thing, right? Where especially on the free agent market, there are only a select amount of pitchers available, and obviously the Orioles are dealing with the, I guess, internal struggle of weighing the importance of draft picks, which clearly they have, I think, a very big emphasis on, and they really want to prioritize those. So I think that if you can go out there and like we said with Corbin, the package price for acquiring players in the offseason is so much less than it is during the year or at the trade deadline when teams are desperate. There are guys that could be available. Is it Castillo an option? There are a couple of other. I know that everybody's kind of linking the Orioles and Mariners together. Like, is that
it just
something?
Makes too much sense. I'm telling you. That's
what it could be. So it could be. And before we get into kind of our last thing, Pocket Watch, appreciate you. React. Hey, we had to do something.
Had to.
Smash the like button. So this is Kevin and Zach React. We go live after every single Orioles game, every single Ravens game, after big pieces of news, and we give you our reactions here. So hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube, and be sure to turn notifications on as well, because certainly baseball season, I know we're not there yet, but I think it's sneaking up, because football season is I feel like yesterday the season started.
Were we not just doing the Chiefs game.
Yeah, seriously.
It's like I still swear we just had our opening day, like that stuff, and now we're almost at opening day 2025.
Yeah, I know. It's just the beginning of December. We haven't hit Christmas yet, but I feel like once the year turns, once February hits, I mean that's go time. Like that's go time. We're almost kind of there, which is crazy to think.
Yeah. And hopefully we've got some more to talk about before then, from the Orioles on a big move perspective. But
yeah, 72 days until spring training. That is crazy.
I miss baseball season.
I know. Just the thrill of it. And hopefully the thrill of a lot of wins.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is like there's such an emotional roller coaster about it. Like, especially last season, like 2023 was so fun because as we talked about, obviously they didn't get swept the whole year. They never lost more than like 3 straight games. It was just this big, everything was sunshine and roses. But last year, man, first half compared to second half was 2 completely different teams. That entire year was just unreal.
And those are the vibes that were so good in 2023, and then 2024 happened. And I mean, crazy walk-off wins to start the year, Westberg, and obviously the Mullins hit over Verdugo. Like,
people remember the handlebar celebration for the first 2 weeks.
Well, that's another big point of controversy because what do they do this year?
Can't bring it back. Can't bring back.
No, not the handlebars.
That's what I'm saying. You got to find something new.
So you're done with the hose. You're done with the.
Yeah, they'll keep the bird bath just because that's a thing now. But
yeah, I mean, maybe we should propose something.
Yeah, we got to do something.
Now I want to come up with something. Because there never really was a good basis for the handlebar celebration. Like it just kind of happened, and no one really got it. Like no one really understood.
They tried to force something. They tried to do the whole X Games mode. And it made no sense.
Yeah, but it didn't make. Yeah, it never made sense. Like why? Rolling with Rock saying wings. Maybe for every homer, boneless wings. Boneless wings, by the way. Even though I know, with the Orioles, you got the wings, but maybe they eat a boneless wing for every.
You just have to. You got to eat a hot wing.
That's what it. However many home runs there are, maybe, or however many home runs you have, maybe you eat a wing, or something. Maybe.
Like
just a bit outside says bird bath, no sprinkler. I feel like they might do. They could still do
clearly
that.
Keeping the bird bath because we saw it in the plans for the thing, but I just don't think that they can bring back the sprinkler.
Yeah. Something bird themed, I feel like, is overdue. Or maybe they're gonna because I feel like they're gonna make the concourse thing with the wall. Like they're gonna make that all something. So maybe they theme it with the team. I don't know what it could be. So.
I'm not sure. Got anything else? Any final thoughts?
I don't think so. I mean, I think, I guess to round it out, let's give our grades just overall. So let's combine them, O'Neill and Sanchez. And if you're with us live in the chat, be sure to put them in the chat. If you're with us after, be sure to put them in the comments.
We'll call it today. Grade for today for the Orioles.
Today. I'll go first. I'll call it a B minus C plus. I'm not like totally moved, but I don't think it's as terrible as some people are making it out to be. Like, I'm not putting the season on Gary Sanchez. I get, again, don't punt on the backup catcher position, but they clearly have shown us what their priorities are, is essentially what I'm going to say here. Like you said, it's about the power, specifically right-handed power. Getting guys in there that can help you out with Tyler O'Neill as a righty, and then Gary Sanchez, who obviously, as you mentioned, is home run or bust, and that's going to be it. So I'll give it a B minus C plus. I'm not overly moved by anything. I don't think these are the biggest moves of the Orioles offseason. If they are, that's very disappointing. But yeah, I think the pitcher moves are what is really going to make or break the offseason for me.
Yeah, I'm going to go B plus. I know obviously it's a little more optimistic, but I am going B plus because I truly believe that this Tyler O'Neill is a replacement for Austin Slater, not Anthony Santander. So that's why I'm giving it a B plus. I'm going to hover at a B plus. I'm going to go between because I think I would give it a solid B plus if it was just O'Neill, with Sanchez thrown in there, I think he's more in the C range. So I think, I'm going to keep it with more B plus, leaning more B plus, because I really like O'Neill as an upgrade as that right-handed bat in the outfield. Now, obviously, I'm making my grade dependent on, hey, I think something else is happening. If nothing else happens out there and you're just hoping O'Neill replaces Tony, this goes, I'm agreeing with you. This isn't a C plus, B minus territory.
Yeah, and I think, again, we'll have to come back to these moves in a month. We'll have to assess, because we can talk about it as individual moves, but I'm very curious to kind of come back to this and assess their offseason as a whole. So we're going to see what happens, but this was their start, and hopefully they have a lot more up the pipeline.
Yeah, so we'll see. And if anything else happens, we'll be here to react to it as it goes down. If you enjoy the content, you're new here, hit that like and subscribe button. And if you haven't hit the like button, hit it on your way out. That's going to do it for today for this edition of Kevin and Zach React. We no game this weekend for the Ravens, so kind of an off day tomorrow. Stress-free Sundays are always nice.
We need one. We need one.
Not stress-free at all, because I'm in the fantasy playoffs in some leagues, or I'm fighting for a spot in others. So there are no Sundays off when it comes to fantasy football.
No.
Gamble responsibly. Yeah. So I think that'll do it, and we will catch you next time. Anything happens, Orioles related, Ravens related, but that'll do it for this edition of Kevin and Zach React.